12 o'clock Central Time. Here we are once again. Happy Monday to everyone out there. Happy Monday. This is Dante Royster with Epic Mortgage. I'll be joined shortly probably by Vince. I'm sure he's going to be joining me today. He just entered the studio, so let's put him out.
What's going on, Dante?
How are you, buddy?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. I got you that background, see?
You got that background. I didn't put it on yet. See?
I know.
I know. I got to figure that one out. You didn't give me any directions. You just gave me a background. There you go, Vince. Figure out how to put this in the background.
Hey, you know what?
That's all good, though. Eventually, I'll get some pictures or get some better lighting so you don't see that halo above my head. But,
no worries.
Glad to be here again. Glad to be back here on a Monday with everyone. So let's get started. I don't know if I'm a little late because the clock says 1:26. So I don't know if you went live yet.
I did. So we're all good. Let's go with the housekeeping notes. Housekeeping notes today. This episode is sponsored by Epic Mortgage. Whether you're buying, refinancing, or investing, call Epic today. That's 708-905-5300. That's 708-905-5300. It's your dreams, your goals. So let's plan together. Also, I want to do a spotlight. I've got to remind you, if you haven't grabbed your copy of the Ultimate Mortgage Guide, it's right over there. Yet you're leaving money.
Bring that closer. Go grab that book. Bring that closer so everyone can see it.
All right. There you go.
There we go.
The Ultimate Mortgage Guide is right over there. Go grab your copy. If you're leaving money and wisdom on the table. This isn't just a book. It's a blueprint for turning your mortgage into a wealth building machine, perfect for buyers, sellers, and even the agents in the room who want to drop more value on their clients than Zillow could ever do. Also, too, want to remind you, once you're done with Lunch and Learn, definitely, if you have time, check out our YouTube channel, Epic Spotlight. Go ahead and check out our most recent episode with Raina Kilgore. She's a family therapist, great information. It was a great interview. Got some compliments along the way. So definitely encourage you to check out Raina Kilgore's interview on the Epic Spotlight as soon as this is over. Obviously, we do have that YouTube channel, so we'd love for you to give us a like and subscribe to the channel. We're growing. Our goal is to get to 2,500. I see that we just touched 2,400, so we're getting there. We're getting closer. So our next goal and target is to try to get to 2,500. So really love the support that we're getting and appreciate everyone that's listening. And hopefully, that means we're bringing value and something that's going to help your life. This Lunch and Learn is being streamed on LinkedIn as well. So you can always give this a like on LinkedIn or on Facebook as well. We're live today. And now we're going to talk about our preferred listings. We have some preferred listings. I'm going to go through these. All these are available on www.danteroyster.com. That's DanteRoyster.com. So you can go right on there and check out all the preferred listings. I'm just going to read them off. It's 2436 Planters Millway in Conyers, Georgia, going for $399. It's a 4-bed, 2.5-bath. Contact Angela Pinnell, 404-425-4660. 1100 South 3rd Avenue, Maywood, Illinois, going for $405. It's a 5-bedroom, 2-bath property. The seller is motivated to sell, and they're offering seller closing cost credits that can help you potentially do a 2-1 buy down. So contact Tamika Bishop, 630-479-6352. We have 8228 South LaSalle, Chicago, Illinois. It's going for $250,000. It's a 3-bed, 1-bath. Contact Amico Pope, 808-428-3770. We have 5544 South California, Chicago, Illinois, going for $394,900. It's a 5-bedroom, 3-bath house. It's beautiful. Contact Victor Naranjo, 708-830-4734. We have some commercial properties. 1413 East End, Chicago Heights, Illinois, going for $165. It's a commercial storage. We can help you get that financing. We are doing commercial lending nowadays. Contact Amico Pope at 808-428-3770. We also have 1645 Western Avenue in Chicago Heights, going for $339. This property used to be a title company. It also used to be a former Burger King, if you know it back in the day. But hey, this could be your future hookah lounge. Contact Keith Terry. I always forget to write down Keith. It's 708-743-6155. Let me just check that. Terry. Yes. Oh, no, you know what? 773-655-1360. So that's 773-655-1360. And then we do have two more. 548 East 50th Street, Unit 3. It's a condo. It's a 3-bed, 2-bath condo. That's big. Contact Jessica Roberson at 708-722-5106. 708-722-5106. And then we do have a renovation project that has great opportunity. We want you to take a look at 7723 South Honorary Street in Chicago, Illinois. Contact Brittany Davis, 773-971-8714. So if you're looking for a potential fixer-upper, potential fix and flip, definitely take a look at 7723 South Honorary. And there we go. That's our preferred listings for the week.
Perfect.
So, I know you're in a good mood because the Bears won, right?
Yeah, I mean, if there's a little bit of a taste of what we're going to see, I'm happy. But it's still preseason, so I'm not going to get too excited yet.
I just remember the Bears were undefeated last year in preseason, and we know how that ended. So, yeah, yes, well, I'm not.
It's a year later. We're still undefeated.
Yes, there we go. We can't lose in the preseason, but today I thought it's you and me today. It's no one else. I thought it'd be great to talk about the market, talk about is this a good time to buy, to refinance, and just flow with that as a conversation. And we always are open to the audience. If you guys once again, this is for you. If you have questions, comments, scenarios that you would want us to address, maybe you're working with a different loan officer. It's okay. Maybe you're working with a different realtor. It's okay. And you don't understand what they're saying. You don't understand, what's going on in your scenario. Use this as a platform to get that information, so we can hopefully, get it figured out for you. So definitely, put in the comments any questions that you have, and let's talk about the market, man.
Yeah, man. Obviously, you know me. I like the unscripted, no outline, off the cusp, quick topics, right? That's me. That's what I like to talk about and how I like to do the show. I just want to ask one thing, and I want everyone's involvement, please, and go ahead and do this because it's just us today. When you ask questions, just put whether you're an LO as LO or RE for a real estate agent or OT for others, just so we know how to go ahead and understand where your question's coming from. But yeah, let's get started. I mean, I'll kick it off. People are starting to concern that values are going to drop. Let's touch on that kind of a little bit, what you're seeing, what I'm kind of seeing, and give the audience some different ways of looking at that. And here's kind of what I mean by that. For those that have purchased a home within the last 3 years, they're waiting for the rates to come down. And we're hearing that rates are going to come down, but they're still not down enough that it makes it profitable or the right financial move to refinance quite yet. It's coming. I had a buddy in Florida that we were talking to, and values came in a little bit lower. And he's like, man, even if this refi interest rates get dropped, my values in Florida might not be holding. So let's kind of talk about how to prep a new buyer into buying a house today in the market to worry about what rates could be. What values could be 18 months out from now. And how we would structure that as a loan officer in terms of like cost or rates, or if you want to take that in a different direction.
Oh, that's interesting. No, we can go that route. I think before we get going on that, let's talk about rates for a second. In the respect of what you're saying, I think so many people, so many consumers, they hear about rates are going to go down in September. But once again, September 17th is when the Fed are going to meet again. We've already anticipate based on, just Wall Street that there's going to be a 90% chance that the Fed are going to, reduce the rate cut, a quarter of a point. So from a mortgage perspective, we've already baked that in. We already know that's what the market is anticipating. So rates are actually better today than they would potentially be September 17th.
Correct.
It can only get really worse from today moving forward based on new news, new CPIs and PPIs and all these different indexes and reports that come out. It's only going to ruin where rates are. So rates right now are actually better today than they are in September. So I guess to your point, values starting to soften is an issue because that means the affordability, we started hitting a point where it just costs too much money, and the market is telling you, no, I can't afford, a half a million, $700,000. I can't afford it. It's too much money. Right.
Absolutely. We're hitting that ceiling, right? As to
Correct.
price is going to be pushing it. And obviously, just to touch a little on the rates, Powell talks on Friday this week. And obviously, we're already getting the anticipation of the lower rate in the marketplace because of what's anticipated to happen on September 17th. But if that doesn't get delivered to the marketplace, then we're going to have a correction the other way. So let's keep that in mind. If you got a loan closing in the next 30 days, you're better locking today than waiting till tomorrow, to be honest.
Correct. And I think we've always been believers of trying to lock in the rate as soon as we have the client, we have a contract. Let's lock in. Let's not play around with it, because sometimes it's hard to anticipate where rates are going to go, because it's every day. Market changes every day based on the news that's coming out.
We see rates every day. That's the thing, right? And I've never been that, right? I do loans, and so do you. We do them across state lines. Now that we have Zoom and everything's easy, you just flip the switch and you talk to them on camera. But before, it was all phone, right? Correct. And to me, it was like, if that client commits to ordering an appraisal and they're happy with that interest rate, as a loan officer, it's my job to make sure I deliver that. And the only way to do that is by locking, because we can't control the market.
Correct.
And if you have a major adjustment from the time you lock to the time the closing is, we have relationships with lenders that allow us to renegotiate that. But with that being said, it needs to be an extreme move. It can't just be a quarter of a point or an eighth of a point. So, let's kind of get started on the value thing. I have an example in Indiana, if you want me to kind of kick it off.
Yeah, go ahead. I see where you're going with it. Yeah.
So hypothetically, my buddy, and I won't put names out there, we'll talk products, but just in general, he's buying a house in Schererville, Indiana. It's a 1,200 square foot townhome. It's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath. It has better finishes than the other townhouses in the area, but it's still 1,200 square feet. It was listed for $270. He put a contract in for $275. The appraisal came in at $260, and comps were at $240. The appraisal came in at $265, and the comps were between $240 and $260. He's doing an FHA loan at 3.5% down, and the seller doesn't want to sell the house for the $265. He wants his $275. And when my guy asked me about it, the comps doesn't even support the $265 because it's not bracketed. We got one at $260, and we have comps within an eighth of a mile of the subject property at $240,000. The reason I'm bringing this up is because I said it wasn't going to pass the lender. The lenders rock it. They approved the appraisal at $265, regardless of the comps. But the seller's still sitting in his head at $275. So kind of talk to the point of the consumer thinks houses are worth this, and the data is showing that.
I mean, every seller thinks their house is worth more than what it is. I mean, it's hard pressed to find a seller that doesn't think their house is worth more. And that is an issue, obviously, but it comes with the listing agent and trying to have these conversations with these sellers of understanding the market, and what you should be doing is, a broker price comparison or a comparable market evaluation of the property. It's called a CMA report that says, hey, give me the last 60 days, area, 1 mile area radius of what has sold, and let's compare it to mine and what's realistic. I mean, it sounds like, to your point, you got lucky on the 265. Yeah, it really doesn't even warrant that. Seller doesn't want to bend on the 265. Now, a couple of things is you reference FHA, so we know that valuation on an appraisal stays with the property for 4 months, 120 days. Correct. So, that seller is stuck with that value if he finds another FHA buyer. As long as Rocket has put it into the FHA connection, because I want to always leave that as a caveat.
Correct, right? Let's make sure it's where it needs to be for it to truly be there. But that is correct, right? And everybody knows that, right? And we sat there and talked about it. And my buddy said, well, I've been looking for a house for almost a year and a half. This kind of fits the bucket. It's not my forever home. It has some, and he works in construction. He's like, it's got better windows. It's got composite decking. So there's some other things that are in the house that I don't mind paying for. And he went ahead and he put a number there, and he's like, I'll split the difference with you, and they're working through it, right?
Sure.
And my point to that is this: in today's market, a buyer's concerned that the value is going to drop, as I talked about earlier in the conversation, or if I buy today, is the value going to be there in 18 months from now? And the reason I bring that up is in the short-term market, FHA may be a better option for all types of real estate transactions, because if values do drop, when rates go down, and when and if, FHA offers a streamlined refinance without having to need an appraisal. So it brings some level of protection to that type of product. Maybe we could touch a little bit on that and kind of explain it that way for the audience, or they may ask questions. And don't get me wrong, I don't wish values to go down. I don't think values are going to go down. When I say that, I mean locally to the Chicago market of maybe the max of 5% in the next 2 years.
Sure.
But this example is in Indiana, and I have a buddy that works in Florida, and he saw a property that he refied he did as a purchase 18 months ago, lose 5% already. So kind of some differences.
No, I agree with you. I always think the West Coast, the East Coast, and obviously, Florida, for example, just being on the water, those are super desirable places. People love, some people, I spoke to a realtor last week that said, hey, I love being by the water. I'm what is she, an Aquarius, or whatever horoscope she is. She was a Cancer actually, but she's like, my sign is water. I got to be by water and calm. So people want to be around beaches and water, and that is a desirable location. So we see these spikes in valuations, in my opinion, right? We see these spikes in those places, but there's always, to the point that we talked about, there's a threshold of how much I can really afford. Can I afford $3,200 a month? Can I afford $3,900 a month? That person that can afford that amount, how much are you willing to go higher? And so that's always going to come into play. And then eventually it gets to a point where it's like, I like it, but it's too much. And if it's too much, that's where we see the softening, and we got to bring the numbers down based on affordability. And that's where, unemployment comes into play. When we're seeing, increases in unemployment, holistically in a macro setting, those are situations where, hey, there might be a softening that's going around because people just are getting to a point. So even in Chicago, let's take it to the Midwest, when we compare us to Indiana and to Michigan, our prices are still well lower than, the norm of Florida or California or something like that. But our real estate taxes are so high.
Our real estate taxes are crazy, right? But in the grand scheme of things, that's correct, right? The Midwest is still what we would call an affordable housing area, just in general, right? Just overall, right? It's not crazy. We don't get the crazy appreciation, in terms of 30% in a year as some of the West and East Coast water states do. But again, our taxes are crazy because of our pension funds and everything else. But again, you touched on the key thing, right? And we've talked about this before. Unemployment will dictate what happens to the true value of homes in the near future. Because when rates go down, values go up. So you're going to get a little bit of an imbalance there, or that drop in rates are going to help even out what would have been a decline in values.
Correct. Yeah. So, I mean, I wrote down a stat here. It said 56% of recent buyers say refinancing to a lower rate is important or extremely important. And to your advantage, and to what you're saying is, obviously an FHA, VA, and I think even USDA, those are the three loan product types that if you have those, you can do a refinance without having an actual appraisal being done. So you can do, they call it a streamline for FHA. They call it an EARL for VA. Not sure what they call it for USDA, but it does give you that opportunity to refinance the property regardless of where the value may be. And so that allows you to take advantage of that lower rate. Obviously, you'll have that PMI on FHA and USDA. You won't have the PMI on VA, which is great, but it is something to consider when you're comparing, like how soft is the valuation. And it takes me back to buyers. When you think about it, it's just to some degree, when you're thinking about buyers, it's, well, what is the purpose of buying the property? Like, where's your strategy for how long you're going to live there? So some people that have some fear per se of like, oh man, values are going to go down, they might dip. Well, who cares if you're going to be there for the next 10, 20 years? It's all about the long game. Now, if you were just, hey,
Correct.
if I'm just,
Right?
right.
Yeah, you mean exactly right, right? Real estate isn't a short-term game if it's your primary home.
No.
Remember, if it's your primary home, I'm not saying you can't flip a property and make money. If it's your primary home, drop in valuation of 5% or 6% over the course of the next 2 years is not the reason to stop you from buying a home today. The reason for buying a home today is because there's a need.
Exactly. And we think about it because there's different types of buyers. And these are like the little things, within our industry we kind of figure out about these different types of buyers. So, a relocation buyer, I had a gentleman that was out in California working for Nestle, and he relocated to the Chicagoland area. Well, within 2 to 3 years, he was out again, moving to Texas. So
Correct.
that's a situation where in that type of strategy, that's where ARMs may come into play, make a little bit more sense than a 30-year fix. And also too, he's constantly having to look at the softening of the market. Hey, can I be able to sell, or can I negotiate with my employer to say, hey, can you cover this difference because I'm underwater and you're asking me to move, from, the Chicagoland area to, the Austin, Texas area. That's a different story. But, to your point, a first-time home buyer, a person that's looking to upgrade, these are usually longer term buyers that are saying, I'm going to buy this. And we probably won't see them in the marketplace for another 7 to 10 years easily. And sometimes we'll never see them again. So those are the people, like, it doesn't matter. Go ahead and buy your property. If valuations go down, so be it. And to your point, when you think about investments, right? Investors, they have to worry about that very so often, especially your fix and flippers.
Correct, especially the fix and flips.
Oh man, I've seen it all the time.
Right, you can have a valuation difference of $30,000.
Flipping
right,
is going to be easily. And you're like, I don't understand. I bought it for 150,000. I put 100K into it, and then when I got the property, it told me that the future value, the ARV, the after repair value, was 350,000. And I was like, okay, great. But now I'm trying to refinance it a year later, or a year, 18 months later, and now the valuation is only 275.
correct.
What the
right?
heck? Yeah.
Exactly, right? And I mean, that's the reason why I kind of just did that direction, right? So just to kind of recap, I want to touch on one thing. We'll hit some questions after this. That FHA loan has some strength in the short term over a conventional loan if you're doing limited down payment in today's market, for that ability to be able to refi if values drop without having to do an appraisal. That does not mean that there's no cost. You still have your closing costs, because without an appraisal, you can't roll fees in or title fees in. So keep that in mind, everyone. On the relocation, I'm glad you touched on the point of being able to negotiate with your employer a shortage potentially as a solution if values do drop and you get transferred. So yeah. I know we have a couple questions there. You want to start with some of that?
Yeah, let's bang them out. And we appreciate you. Keep sending them in. If you got questions, let's see if we can answer them. Should first-time buyers focus more on saving or lowering debt right now? I got an answer to this, and these are always good banters with Vince, me and him, because we see things differently, and I love it. My answer is, if you're in the process of buying a house now, I would focus on the savings, because more than likely I've already pre-approved you for where you stand. So sometimes I get these, situations, first-time home buyer, they have some credit challenges. Let's say they're 640 credit score, but I've already got you at the 640. I've already done the math and said, hey, you're pre-approved for $300,000. You're pre-approved for, 265, whatever the number is, and I've given you the taxes too, especially if you're in Illinois, because it's very important with the taxes. At that point, let's not, oh, well, I'm going to try to pay down some debt because I want to try to improve my credit score. No, pause. Let's just keep that money in because you're going to need it for cash to close. Oh, what's cash to close? How much is it going to be? Well, I don't know just yet. You have a down payment requirement. Even if we have, a down payment assistance program, which is great, you still have closing costs, title fees, your attorney, your home inspection, your appraisal, setting up an escrow account, how much is your insurance? All these things will come into play. And so I'd rather you have the money saved for those items than to try to boost up your score from a 640 to, okay, great. Now you're 658. You're still within that same bucket. A lot of times the credit scores, they kind of range in like 20 points where you'll see a difference, right? From 640 to 659, 660 to 679, and so on and so on. So if you're going to fall within that bucket, well, why did you just spend that $1,000, $2,000 to pay off some debt? I would prefer you to go ahead and save that money for closing. What do you say, Vince?
Boy, man, we are totally on the opposite end, and I'll touch on it in a couple different ways, right? So I'm going to be in the camp of pay your debt off, put the least amount of money into the property and pay your debt off. Don't worry about the savings at a later time in order for the down payment, because I'm going to tell you we can structure it. You take a little bit of a higher rate, and you pay the closing costs within the loan program in itself. That doesn't necessarily work for everybody. Obviously, you have to fit the debt ratios that meet the program requirements. So with that being said, if you're an FHA buyer and your credit score is at 680, your rate's not that much better than that at 620. So let's just kind of build on that. If you're buying a $300,000 house, you need $10,500 in order to purchase the home. That's your 3.5%. And if you have some extra money that's sitting in the bank and you want to pay that car loan off to bring your debt ratio down in order to qualify, go ahead and do it. The savings to me is, if you're talking about saving $100 a month or things of that nature, I would always just be like, put the lease into the house and pay off the debts. So to me, I would more focus on making sure the ratios work than worrying about the closing costs, because I would put my client in a higher interest rate to get this credit spread from the lender in order to help pay for the closing costs. Not all of it, just a little bit of a portion of it.
And what I love about these conversations is there's no right or wrong. And I want to make that clear for consumers out there. There is no right or wrong answer to this. How Vince, structures his deals with his clients, it may be different than how I structure my deals, but these are just ideas. And so once again, we can propose those ideas and then you make the decision that works best for you. But, obviously our ideologies, or at least our mindsets, hey, I would do this versus this. Especially, in my opinion, is the realtor cost now, right? I mean, we're in a whole new world.
Yeah.
50 years of, the seller paid the realtors and that was it. And, I had someone recently, and I'm just going to go on a tangent here. It was really eloquently, it was eloquently explained to me. And this is how it went. I'm a seller of my house, and it was like, hey, seller, I'm a realtor. I want to sell your house. In order to sell your house, I'm going to charge you, let's just say 6%. Okay. And the seller would say, hey, 6%, geez, that's a lot. What do I get with that? Because I think everyone wants to know, what's the value that I'm getting from this? Well, I'm going to put your house on the market, and I'm going to have it connected to the MLS, which is the multiple listing search that all real estate agents have. I'm also going to do home open houses. I'm also going to, market it the way I know how to, work with hopefully Epic Mortgage that has preferred listings. And also with that money, not all that money gets to me. I'm actually going to brand this with another agent that's going to find a buyer who may have a buyer and tell them about this great opportunity. And so this is where the money is going to be allocated. So, this co-marketing money was, allocated. Now, somehow, some way, that got lost in translation over time. And it looked like, the greedy listing agent was getting all the money, and, or no one explained how this other agent was getting paid. And now it looked like it was egregious. And now we got into this world where the seller always had options, but now the seller really knows that he has an option. And now he's like saying, well, you know what? I don't want to pay that. I don't want to pay this. I don't want to pay them. And these realtors in turn, and this is funny how we have to wait to see how things unravel. At first, I thought realtors were going to reduce their compensation. They were going to go with the flow and just reduce. So if they were used to making 2.5, if the seller was only going to say, I'm going to give you 1.5 points, or if the seller, I'm only going to pay 2, the buying agent would just say, okay, it stinks, but something's better than nothing. But they've dug their heels to the ground and said, no, I'm worth X amount of dollars, and that's what I'm going to get, rain or shine. And that has put more stress on my buyers unknowingly, because they didn't necessarily realize this. But now my buyer has an additional 1%, 0.25%, 0.5% more in fees and closing costs because of now these realtor commissions that they have to pay. And so that's where, for me right now, as a first-time home buyer, my focus is on the savings.
Yeah. I mean, and you see a lot more purchase contracts than me. So, I mean, you're seeing a better market feel of that. I mean, and we support our realtors out there. Don't get me wrong. But you guys also work together from the standpoint of your associations have a lot more meaning in the marketplace. So the point of this and where I'm going is this: as a consumer, you're still paying for service. And the point of that service is to guide you through the process, because you don't do this every day. You do this once every 5 to 7 years. So there's value to what we do and to what our partners in the real estate world do. And I'm not saying that from just a sales point, but just remember, there's marketing, there's expenses. So if you do sell a house for $300,000, that's 15 grand divided by 2, because there's an agent for your buyer. That's $7,000 less marketing expenses and everything else. So it's not as big of a number as you think it is when it's all broken down.
Correct. Yes, and I didn't mean to poo-poo any realtors out there. I mean, I know they're working hard, and I don't want them to be devalued, but I just also want them to have a sense that these commissions that they say, hey, this is what I deserve. It's now going on the buyer side and creating just a little bit more. You need more money, and sometimes that's tough for a first-time home buyer.
Oh, absolutely, right. But
next
then again,
question
too, right?
here, we got. Is 2025 a better year to buy or to refinance? Interesting. Thanks, Richard, for that. What do you think?
You got to own the house first, right? So, so you got to buy. I mean, I like that, right? Let's buy now, refi later, right? I mean, I'm all about that if the time comes, right? But I mean, at the end of the day, there is no refi without the purchase, right? So the first and foremost thing that we always promote here, it's home ownership first, wherever that is and how that is. So it's to buy. And as like I said earlier, values are probably going to drop a little bit overall in the short term, but when rates drop, values will wind up bouncing back. So I think we'll get an overall equal play on that, because it'll balance each other out. And again, it goes back to you buy a house when you're ready.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it for some odd reason in my head when I see this question. I'm just thinking of it as an investment, and we're America is being touted, with some of the negotiations for even from a political scale, right? When our president goes out to the EU and shaking hand and working these deals, is based on this consumerism that we have here. It's based on us, the American people, that hey, we buy a lot of stuff. So you want to do deals with us because I have this whole 340 million people that do a lot of consumerism. And I just think that, yes, this is true, but what we should start focusing on are buying assets, things that have the ability to appreciate. And a house, residential, commercial, this is just another asset, whether you're buying a magnificent painting, but you want to find things that have an ability to appreciate and value. And buying a property is just one of those things that you should have in your portfolio. And so, yes, to Vince's point, you have to own it first, and then we can look to do the refinance. The beauty about refinancing is you can do it multiple times. Some people, I still get that question every now and again that people didn't know that. Every 6 months you can refinance as long as it's presenting a net tangible benefit, right? It's got to present a benefit to you. It can't be just 2 months off on your mortgage, but a little bit more than that. Where you're seeing a savings, either a rate reduction, but paying off debt consolidation. But yes, you definitely want to buy an asset, which a house can be, and over time, it'll be one of the best decisions that you've made, hopefully. All right, we got another question here. What's the smartest move if rates don't drop soon? Thanks,
Again,
Kenneth.
granted, to me, we're talking about buying, but then again, if we're talking about smartest moves and rates don't drop and you're talking about buying an investment property, it's whether or not the time's right. And again, you do a lot more investment business than me. And so the only thing I want to touch on that is if you have multiple investment properties and you have equity in some, and then you want to turn around and go buy another one, it may be the right time to refinance and take the equity from the one to put in a new purchase. But again, the smartest move, if rates don't drop soon, is to buy the house today.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, Bigger Pockets is a podcast out there. Definitely have listened to them. They got some great information, really, opened my eyes out. So shout out to those guys. I would say Burr, right? The Burr method from an investment side, it's buying the property is the first thing. Then you want to renovate the property. Okay, once you rehab it and renovate it, make it look nice and neat, you've increased the value, hopefully. And then at that point, you're wanting to refinance the property and get the cash out. And then you want to rent it out. And so I think, a lot of these ideologies, a lot of these ideas have been around for years on years. I think they're just getting spoken more and more. And with, internet and, these, platforms now, they're getting explained. But, the whole idea of leveraging has come into play. And just the idea of having an investment property that you own and that, you have tenants paying the investment property. They're paying down the mortgage, so let the tenants pay off the mortgage for you. And in turn, you're able to use that money to, to your point, either buying something else or establishing opportunities that you're looking out in the world. So I think, you have to have a strategy, you have to have a goal in mind where you're trying to go, and then, see how, owning property can help utilize your situation. So, to some degree, sometimes I get investors say, well, what's the rate? And to some degree, I push back like, it doesn't matter.
There you go.
Rates 20%.
My
Guess
favorite
what?
line on that. It doesn't matter, right? It doesn't. But then at the end of the day, right? Especially on the investment side, and then I'll kind of throw a little joke to the rate thing just in general. Is it cash flowing too, right? And it's hard to cash flow where rates are today. That's the other thing, depending,
Sure.
Right? So, and again, the rate market thing's always funny, right? There's no refi market unless rates are going down. And the reason I bring that up kind of as a joke is because one of my previous clients, his wife, were Facebook friends, whichever. She's like, hey, Vince, I miss your phone call every 6 months wanting us to refi and save 3/4 of a point, right? Because over the last 10 years, the rates did nothing but go down. And over the last 3 years, they've done nothing but go up.
Correct. Yeah, I was telling somebody, just when we got into the business, rates were right around 10%, for me at least, right? 2002-ish. And then, from 2002, I've seen rates go all the way down,
That's correct.
as low as, one of my clients, Miss Sanders, they got 1.75 on a 15-year. And then now I've seen them come all the way back up again.
Scary chart pattern, right? It's called the V, like the first initial of my first name, and we don't want to see it continue.
Exactly.
I want the W.
Well, we've seen the W though, all right? I mean, to some degree we have.
Yeah, depending at what peak of the V you want to talk about.
Correct. It's just, it's a situation where I just think that when you're on the investment side, if you're an investment buyer, the tenant is going to pay the mortgage. Even the lender, with our DSCR programs, are not going to even allow a deal to go through if the rent is not paying the mortgage. So I mean, that's how focused we are on that. So we are cognizant of what are the average rents in the area if the property is vacant, or what is the rent based upon the lease, and we're making sure that the mortgage is going to get paid. Now the question is, okay, that's going to happen. Check. What are you going to do with the property? What are you going to do with that money that you receive? That's
Right.
that's the $1 million question. What is the strategy? Sometimes people don't do anything because they don't even know what they would do.
Right.
Hey, if I gave you $50,000 today, what would you do? And some people, man, you ask that question and you get a blank stare, like 50. Like, I don't know.
Sure. I mean, granted, I'd say margin it and invest it and do everything else and day trade until you lose it. No, I'm kidding.
All right, next question. Joe writes, how can young buyers compete with cash buyers today?
That's a tough question. I mean, because obviously cash is king, but you just got to stay out there and you got to stay positive when looking for the houses. And again, I kind of answered that for the first time home buyer. As an agent, you just got to stick with them. You got to give them that guidance and be like, hey, this is what we're facing in the marketplace. We're going to go against the cash because you are a first-time home buyer. Here's what's going on. You're going to run into those hurdles. It's an inventory problem. You can't really do anything about it. It's just part of the game of figuring it out. You can figure out ways to strengthen your offer, but, again, you're competing with someone who may be selling an existing home.
Yeah, I mean, cash buyers generally, if we're looking at, the tiers, is the number one buyer out there. Cash is king in that regard, right? The cash is going to be someone that could probably close in 2 weeks versus you getting a loan that's going to take 30 days, 45 days. And there's multiple things that can blow up the deal, from appraisal issues, from underwriting issues, from credit issues, you lose your job type issues, whatever the case is. So cash is always going to be desirable. But I, to your point, I think buyers need to make, looking for a house, a job. It's your secondary job that you have when you're out there. You got to be looking aggressively for opportunities that exist.
Yeah.
So I think that's very important, that you are, being aggressive out there and looking every day. You go to work and then, all right, I'm done with that job one. I'm going to job two. I'm going to go find a house. And then I think you have to be willing to be flexible. Sometimes so many people are like, yeah, and obviously every situation is different. Every situation is unique. If you got, kids, it might be a different story because you're trying to go in a certain school district. But if you are, a young buyer, no kids, you got to be flexible on where you want to live. There might be opportunities. It's funny. I was working out yesterday and I was talking to a guy and he's giving me a real story. He's got a son that lives in Chicago and he's got a girlfriend, no kids, and they're ready now to move out of Chicago and go to the western suburbs. And he was complaining because there's no opportunities out in the western suburbs right now. It's still kind of dead, and he wants to live in, Lisle, Downers Grove, this type of area. And he's like, there's nothing out there. And then even the stuff that's out there is, $500,000 and it's probably needs about $100K worth of upgrades. And it's just like, geez. And, to that point, I'm going to push back and say, well, do you really want to move? Can we look at Glendale Heights? Can we look at Addison? Can we look at Carroll Stream? Can we look at, whatever, what have you? You have to be flexible in this marketplace when there's not a lot of inventory to be flexible on just the opportunities that are out there. There are things, if there was no one moving, we'd probably be out of business. There's contracts I'm getting, I received 3 contracts today. So there are people moving. There are people that are finding opportunities out.
Business is still happening. There's still activity.
Correct.
Right? It's just a matter, like you said, it's a job.
Correct.
You got to search to buy a house like you were searching to come off of unemployment. And that's the amount of effort you need to put into the marketplace today.
And you have to be flexible with the product. Maybe it is a renovation loan. Oh, I want something that's move-in ready. No, maybe take the ugly duckling. take up the beat up house and, and just buy that and do a renovation loan. We can help you with those things. There's just opportunities out there. Well, I was trying to get the place by myself. No, you don't make enough money by yourself. You're going to have to get a co-signer, get your buddy, get your girlfriend. You're going to have the combination. A lot of people don't realize you can have up to 4 people on a loan. Let's go get mom and dad on there too, whatever it takes. We have to, you have to be willing to be flexible. That's all I'm saying. Just,
if mom and dad are willing, then mom and dad's willing to go on it, do it with your parents first and doing it with the girlfriend or the significant other or however, right? Because if you're not married, don't buy a house together.
Right. All right, next one. Jeff writes, how can buyers protect themselves from overpaying in this market?
You're in control of that. I mean, the true value of a house is what you're willing to pay for it. So, exactly. That's up to you, right? I mean, there is no definition of anything else. I mean, if a house is listed for sale, the true market value is what someone's willing to pay for it. So there is no overpaying because you're the market. You're seeing all the other houses and you're comparing to what it's worth.
Yeah. I mean, we have people sitting on the sidelines, right? We have, I can give you a list of people that are not buying a house right now because they're still looking because they haven't found what they wanted, AKA it's too expensive for them.
Right.
It's going to take longer. I was really excited. I had a lady, I think she was looking, she's been looking for a while and she got under contract. We're going to make the numbers work. But it's just one of those things. What are you willing to pay will define what the valuation is. If you're, is everyone overpaying right now? For the most part, probably.
Oh, absolutely. Right. I mean, if you want to sit there and actually analyze the numbers, right?
Correct.
We've had too big of appreciation over the last 5 years, right?
Correct.
Let's just be honest. It is what it is.
Right.
We weren't supposed to see 20% appreciation back to back.
No.
So there you go. And what I mean by that is the increase we had in 20 and 21.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And we haven't seen a correction on those numbers.
On any of it.
Correct. They've gone to the moon and for the foreseeable future based on, and that's where I go with the millennials and the Gen Zers based on our population, that our vast majority of population is 18 through 43. I don't foresee it coming down anytime soon. No. That's just my prognostication. Appreciate that, Jeff. Stavros, what's your top tip for staying financially strong while waiting to buy? That's a good question. What will you say to that?
So to me, if you're waiting to buy and you're financially strong and keeping everything, at the end of the day, you want the package of your offer, your credit profile and assets and everything else to stay where it is and just knock the little things off as you're waiting, if you truly are waiting.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is where, I would agree with Vince, like, hey, pay some bills down. Make sure that you're putting, and I hope no one gets mad, but if you're a W-2 employee, W-2, you get paid every 2 weeks. Come on, we got to get better with our budget. Let's start with our budget situation. How much is coming into your account every 2 weeks. We have to say, hey, if I got $1,300 coming in, that means I'm not going to be spending $1,400. I'm going to spend probably $900 to $800 because I'm going to put, at least 10, 20%. That's going to go into an emergency savings, into my IRA, whatever I got going individually, I'm investing, but I have to be able to break it down. I really have had, our budgeting has to get better when we're W-2 employees. I really am. I encourage everyone, and if we have to sit down and break down the numbers, we got to break them down. But there's got to be an opportunity. There's got to be a way that you got, you can do Microsoft Excel. You can do all these different budget apps that are on people's phones now. But we got to get better. If we know exactly how much is coming in, and I've always had a, kind of a sympathy for people, hey, if you're self-employed, if you're, out there, I get it. You don't know the next time you're going to get paid. You don't know the next deal you're going to do. So I have sympathy for those, but for the other people now, come on now, you're getting paid every 2 weeks. We have to work around that budget. And if that's not enough for you, then let's go make more money. We
Let's
have
go
to
fix
take
it,
office.
right?
Yeah.
No, I want to touch on one of those as a joke. Remember, there are commissioned employees that are W-2, Dante.
This is true.
And with that being said, and just to go back on that, if you're waiting to buy and you are W-2, stock up and make sure you max out your 401k. And I don't mean just to company match. If you're sitting on the sidelines waiting for the house, I'm talking about being able to truly max it out to get that tax write-off.
Yeah, you're going to get me on a tangent, but yeah, no, I just obviously I had the ability right out of college to have a W-2 paying job, a salary, and I quickly, I thought that was probably the easiest time that I had when I knew how much money was coming in every 2 weeks, how to strategize, plan things, and keep it moving. Obviously, the change that happened for me was in 2007. When that was gone, and then it went from having to juggle, having to balance, having a hedge, and all those things became a major issue. And so to me, I was like, man, that's tough.
Yeah.
So I have I feel for anyone that's self-employed. I'm self-employed, so I get it. It's not easy. I understand the pitfalls, but definitely if you're W-2 an employee and you're making an hourly wage or salary, see, Vince, hourly or salary,
Yeah, there you go, buddy. There you go.
though, we got to get on a budget, and then get that money right.
Now, remember, I know Dante for over 20 years, well, 15, let's just say. So I can play around and joke around with him like that, but it's fun working with him.
I appreciate that. What strategies can help families build wealth despite high rates? Thank you, Rochelle.
I'm going to let you take that first, or we'll take a second to pause that because,
Yeah. I mean, one strategy, if we're talking real estate, I mean, one strategy would be multi-unit buildings, right? That would be a route you could look into, looking at purchasing, a 2-unit, a 3-unit, preferably it's always 3 to 4, and when you do the numbers, usually that third unit, especially if you get a 4-unit ideally, and I know prices are up, but if you can get that 4th unit, I had a client looking at, she's looking at a property is going to be coming on the market, $500,000, 4-unit building in the suburbs, western suburbs, and each rent is $1,700. So I mean, 1734 was at 51. So $5,100 is going to be coming in off the rents, and she can live in one of the units. Basically living rent free.
Right.
And that's the sweet spot. So, a strategy, I know you said strategies, but one strategy that comes on top of mind, if you can, a family building is another opportunity where everyone pitches in on each of the units. But if you can rent them out, that's a huge opportunity for my client. She's going to sell her house. She lives, she lives in the suburbs, but she had a 2-flat, and she was feeling the pain of a 2-flat because, that's not cash flowing the way she was hopeful for. So if her mortgage is, let's say, $1,900 a month, and she had a basically like a basement unit, it was more of a headache for her, and she could only get like $800, $900. So she still had to kind of flip the bill. She's willing to sell that and go into a 4-unit building where it's like, oh my gosh, now I'm living rent free.
Right.
So those are opportunities I see despite the high rates. What do you say?
And I agree. I mean, and just to kind of build off of what you said, just to go back on it, the 1 to 2 unit, you're breaking even. On the 3 to 4, you're basically covering expenses, and the 4th unit turns into profit. And what I mean by expenses is the standpoint of, let's call it maintenance. So it truly is working. The whole thing of buy a 2-unit, live in one, rent the other, that's just reducing your expense. You're in the overall, you're not making money at that scenario. The 3-4 is where you truly start making money.
Exactly. Yeah, it's and every situation is different, Rochelle. I mean, we would have to look at yours uniquely and see, what we could offer or suggest. But yeah, the multi-unit building is probably the strategy that I would recommend. That'd be the route to go. And then it's so crazy, Vince, just talking with you today. I looked up and it's 55 minutes. I didn't even realize.
I mean, I'm glancing with my lazy eye to the right just to make sure, seeing how many times my phone rings. I still can't figure out how to shut it off. I even lowered the volume today, so I can't hear anything, but it's still ringing.
That's hilarious. Jack Wright, great session. How can millennials best prepare before entering the market? I think we've touched base on it, to some degree. I'll just say, you know, it's credit, income, and assets. It comes down to CIA. And that's what we focus on here. Is we're going to look at your credit. Is your credit ready? We can do a soft pull and just take a peek at the credit and see where it is. From an income standpoint, how much money are you making? We can look at a 2-year history. If you're hourly, if you're self-employed, what have you, and gauge on just what you would qualify on your own. That way you can, go out to these different websites, the Redfins, the Zillows, the Realtor.coms, and you can look at properties that, you would potentially qualify for. Is there something out there for you based on what you're looking for? If the answer is no, man, I need to be at 265 in the area I want to buy, and I'm only at 225 by myself, then we have to look at partnerships, co-signers. Can mom and dad, can a best friend, can a fiance, can someone else go on the loan with you to help increase that income? And then also too, we would want to look at potential, from an asset standpoint, how much money can we put down? Can mom and dad give you a gift? Can you get some more money to be able to put down to maybe help offset and so that you can qualify? So those are the steps that I would say that you could definitely do to prepare before entering the market. What do you say, Vince?
Yeah, the only thing I want to add, I mean, sit down and have that conversation with your parents if it is an option to figure out what that gift could be if it's available. And it doesn't necessarily need to be a gift for the down payment. It may be paying off some of the other bills that may be on your credit profile to make it easier to qualify.
No, that's awesome. And Vince, do you find your clients are more motivated by necessity or fear of missing out on like prices?
I mean, just because I'm dealing more with previous clients, it's more of the standpoint of the necessity.
Got it.
Just because I'm not targeting that. I'm not saying I won't work with millennials. It's just my target isn't that because I'm basically off of my previous book of business still.
Got it. And obviously, when we come into factor, when does a loan officer come into play? It's usually when there's a life change occurring, especially with our previous buyers. Right.
Right. Yeah. I mean, hey, I need to sell. I need to pull the equity, right? Like, I mean, I'm getting calls from my previous clients whose kids were in their living room when we were doing the mortgage that are now ready to buy. And it's like, well, I want to, but I'm not there yet. So that's kind of what I'm getting on the younger crowd on that end, quite just for my previous clients. But again, it's not a necessity. I mean, hey, I'm living in an apartment with my girlfriend. We got married. We want to have a kid in 2 years. We want to buy our first home. What's our steps? Where are we at? My mom and dad told me I needed to call you. They didn't say why. They just said I needed to call you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that does happen. And they're like, hey, I was told to call you. You're supposed to figure all this out. So yeah, I got that. I helped this. She's a doctor, and she moved up here recently, and I helped her close with her and her husband. And then her brother called me, who's in Florida, and it's like, yeah, they told me I need to speak to you. I was like, okay, all right.
What do we got? What do we need to fix? What's stirring the pot, right? How can we make it work?
Exactly. All right, let me roll up the sleeves and make it happen. But you want to have those relationships, and I think that's a good kind of wrap up point. We want to have those relationships with you because it is important to, work with your own financial team, people that have your back. And once you find someone like that, I respect it. I mean, I will work with anyone, but if they say, hey, I got a guy and he's doing the job, hey, thumbs up.
Thank
awesome.
You. No problem. Great. Appreciate the opportunity. Yeah.
100%. I respect that. I respect, creating relationships that last. Now I have bumped into people that said, I don't even remember who my loan officer was. He didn't communicate well with me. I didn't feel like he was listening to what I had to say. Now, those are the times where I'll step in and say, okay, well, here, you have a home here at Epic Community. You can be a part of the Epic community, and that's what we do, is try to let you know we're out here. We're trying to service people, and we're trying to make it happen. We're trying to make it happen not only for ourselves but for you. First and foremost, it's all about you. We want to help accomplish your goals, your dreams. And that's why we're going to work together to do that. Let's finish up with the housekeeping notes. I think I'm riding solo tomorrow, so that'll be exciting.
I mean, I may be able to make a guest appearance. I mean, I got a doctor's appointment at 9 and one again at 1. So I don't think you guys want to see me driving down the Kennedy or the Eisenhower at 90 miles an hour trying to make it to a doctor's appointment.
No,
so I will be back on Thursday. Again, my name is Vincent. My phone number is 708-359-8578. And you guys can always email me any questions at vince@epic.mortgage. I'll turn it over the rest to Dante. Thanks, everyone, for participating today. Appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. We'll see Vince on Thursday. Looking forward to that. And we'll also have Michael Kamey on Thursday. He is a designer. So that'll be interesting. We'll talk about some housing designs and all that good stuff. But yeah, I will be on tomorrow solo. So keep the questions. I'm going to need you guys. LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. Ask me these questions so we can get through it, and we'll make it happen. I do have some stuff saved for you guys for tomorrow. Tell you about this story too. I got a story time with me and the wife over the weekend, and get some input on that. And then we'll have Gil Freeman and Marissa Hazelwood is back on Wednesday. So we're going to talk about old school loan officer, the day in the life of a loan officer. I thought that would be a good segment on Wednesday. So we got some great shows this week for you. Like I said, we do have some preferred listings. Just go to go to www.danteroyster.com. Check out our preferred listings. These are properties that we are help marketing. We do know the listing agent can get your offer approved if you work with us. So definitely take a look at those preferred listings. Get those to friends and families. Make sure, whether you're on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, please put a like on this, and also, subscribe to, learning more about us. If you want to be on our newsletter, we do have a newsletter that comes out every Friday. Just, DM me at Dante, DANTE at epic.mortgage. I can get you on the newsletter so you can get more information about the market, a little bit more dialed into maybe your unique situation. Always, if you have any questions or scenarios or comments, definitely go ahead and make sure you just let us know, email us or DM us, what have you. We're on these platforms. And then once again, if you once you get off of here, please take the time and go ahead and check out the latest Epic Spotlight interview, and that's with Raina Kilgore. So check that out, Raina Kilgore. I appreciate that, and appreciate you, Paige, for listening in and saying that thing. We did our thing today, Vince. I appreciate you, and I'll see you on Thursday.
Absolutely. And again, anyone wants to email you guys want to email any topics for what you guys may want us to talk about, feel free to send those emails. We'll definitely do that. Everyone have a great afternoon. Everyone take care.
Take care.